Music, it makes moments for all of us, right? The moment you first heard that song, the moment you saw them live, the moment you just knew. Music makes moments, but it's also made from moments. Moment You Made It is a show that seeks to find those moments for those artists, creators, and business professionals alike who make music into the moments that you remember. Moment You Made It is a podcast hosted by three creatives from the live music capital of the world. Director of the Texas Music Office, Brendan Anthony, singer-songwriter Fred Andrews, and executive director of the Austin Music Movement, Nick Shuley. Moment You Made It seeks to document the most compelling conversations with people that make those musical moments.
Nick, I love it when you find the record button after 5 minutes.
Yeah,
that was gold stuff we just left on the cutting room floor there.
Head of tech over here, which is scary what that means for you guys.
It really is. Matt, how are you guys doing? Nick, what's happening?
Doing great. I actually just got back in town.
Yeah, did you do a little biking with Bo Jackson?
I wouldn't say I biked. I helped put on a little charity event in Alabama every year.
So Bo bikes too.
He does.
Bo knows bikes.
At least a couple times a year.
So if you guys don't know, Bo Jackson, multi-sport athlete, do we have to do this for him? I don't really think so.
I mean, for the younger gen, you do. Like I dropped that name, and nobody knows who he is in the younger generations.
Can we get him on a podcast? Let's get him on a podcast.
Yeah,
that'd be awesome.
We definitely could.
Well, then why don't we? What kind of music does he like?
I saw him singing along to what was Bobby Brown's group?
New Edition.
New Edition. I saw him singing along to a New Edition song at one of the events, so I know he likes New Edition at least.
Yeah, like Ralph Trazvan, all those good guys, man. They're awesome.
Fred Andrews, how you doing today?
My man,
I love
Fred.
R&B.
Dude, I didn't know this about you. We're gonna have to catch up about this over some beverages of choice.
For sure. Yeah. No,
I love
I'm great.
Especially that era. Yeah, that's a good era.
That was good stuff, man. I really did dig it. But yeah, that'd be fun talking to Bo Jackson. I mean, he's probably the best two-sport athlete ever, right?
I would venture to say he's the greatest athlete of all time, and so do many people. I mean, he was an all-star in two sports at once.
Fred, probably one thing you don't know about Nick, because he's pretty low-key about it, is he's involved in a lot of these projects with a lot of really famous people like that. And when Nick decides, he'll let you in on it. But yeah, he's full of secrets, this guy.
That's me, international man
of
secrecy.
In the closet.
Yeah, super exciting secrets. But yeah, no, it was fun. It was interesting to go to. I mean, I really haven't taken any trips in quite a while, minus some road trips, and so it was interesting. And I flew into Atlanta and spent a little time in Auburn, Alabama.
Amazing.
Ooh, Brendan, what was that? What was that crap place that we played in Auburn? That shithole. What was it called?
It's called the War Eagle Supper Club.
That's right.
Wish I would have known. I would have gone by.
Charlie Mars and you guys. And I recall after we had the two opening bands on, we tried to fire up. And
at 4:30,
every time, probably around 11:30, 12. And every time we fired up, the power would go off. Like we'd kill the power. We were too many amps drawing on it, and so we hit the first note of the first chord of the first song, and the entire place would go dark. And God knows what would happen in the club at that point.
Oh my God!
Finally, throw the breaker, and we'd get fired up again, and it killed it 3 times. And finally, we played. We had to climb in a window to get into the stage on that one.
That was such a great time. I remember that.
Not because like Pat's like Mick Jagger or anything. There was literally no room to walk to the stage.
No, you know why I'm sorry, that was really funny, Brendan. I should let you finish that one. But I got so excited about talking about he was the Pat Green of Alabama. Who was that guy?
That dude.
Well, I'm the Pat Green of Pat Green.
That dude.
What was his name?
That dude. Oh God, what was his name? But that was upstairs at the Georgia Theater.
Yeah.
And he told Pat that he was the Pat Green of Texas, and Pat Green said, "Well, I think I'm that Pat Green. You can pick another state to be me from."
That's awesome.
I can't remember that dude's name.
Of all the people to tell that story to.
Oh well, it was a little sad though. He did get shot in Nashville.
He did. He was eventually shot and killed in Nashville, and I cannot remember his name, and I feel terrible about that. But
I'll think of it. I'll think of it probably right in the middle of a great story you're saying, and
That took a hard left,
scream it out.
boys. took a hard left.
This guy was.
Well, cocaine. Wayne. Cocaine. Wayne.
Man, you're getting close.
Wayne something.
We'll remember.
I cannot remember his name. I can remember places and dates, but names evade me. Speaking of dates, Fred, I will say I got a notification from Frank the Crank Jackson earlier this week that Songs We Wish We'd Written 1 turned 20 years old last week. And of course, that was the collaboration between Pat Green, whom I played for, and Cory Morrow, Pat's good buddy from Tech, who I also played for a little while. They did a collaboration record, and we did this whole record store tour around the state and radio tour around the state. And it just turned 20 this year. It was a lot of fun to do that.
Wow.
So Pat and Cory were super close because they came up at Tech together. And they've got this interesting kind of, Genesis story. They started playing for Tips, and then, Pat decided to go work for his dad. Cory moved to Austin and decided to make a record and made a really great record with Lloyd Maines and was off and running. Didn't finish college.
Who's Lloyd Maines?
So Lloyd was producer extraordinaire down here in Texas. Natalie Maine's dad. Natalie was, of course, the lead singer for Dixie Chicks, but Lloyd was a mentor and a musical teacher to a lot of young guys coming up, and he was an expert in the scene. Played with Joe Ely when Joe toured with The Clash, and he's just an amazing producer. He could make really something out of very little for a lot of people. He did that for a lot of folks on the first record.
I needed him.
Well, I don't think it's an insult to say, like, when a Cory or a Pat or a Roger or, name 50 guys would go in and they'd have, a GCD progression on every song. And, the words were okay, but needed some tweaking. Lloyd could do that and make a really interesting sounding record out of anything. And of course, people grew up with Lloyd musically, so, they'd get better along the way too. And Lloyd was a really selfless teacher that way. Lloyd made that record with Cory, and Cory actually had, before anybody had heard of Pat or Roger or this new kind of crop of young guys coming up, they'd probably heard of Jack Ingram, who was based out of Dallas at that time, but they had not heard of these other guys. Cory was actually getting kind of big. He started working with John Dixon when Dixon started doing these college scene type shows at Hang 'em High in Austin, at the Tap in College Station, and out in Lubbock too, and in Dallas. And he started making Cory a pretty popular name. And I met Cory when he was playing at the Tap, and I was just so young and dumb enough to walk. I could, confidently walk up and ask what he was doing and how he'd written songs. And that ended up as a gig for me for a little bit. I was playing in a college, country cover band, and I ended up playing with Cory for a bit. And it was actually at a Robert Earl Keen show when Cory Morrow was scheduled to open up. It got rained out, and I kept my backstage pass because I was supposed to play with Cory. When they rescheduled the show, Cory wasn't able to make it because his sister was getting married, and they pulled this unknown guy from Waco named Pat Green to come open for Robert, and that's where I met Pat and walked up to him and told him he needed to hire me, and that's how I got my gig with Pat. So long drawn out story, but Pat and Cory were really close in the kind of same world for a long time, and I had a blast playing with Cory, and it's been amazing to watch his whole story unfold. He really struggled with some stuff. He had some success. He had some lack of success for a bit. He kind of got it back, and then he really struggled with some very human stuff for a while. And it's great to say today, he's on his feet, still playing a ton of music. He's got a huge house full of kids, an amazing wife and family, and it's really fun to see him kind of on the other side of all that stuff. And it was great to talk to him on this episode. We're good. We had an accompaniment over there for a second.
She's just anxious to join the family band.
It's good. Send him to law school.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Excellent. See, I was thinking back, and now I think, at this point, I've probably, like I said, known you more in my life than I haven't. And I think I remember, it must have been, I was actually trying to think through this. It must have been mid-'90s when I first ran into you, and I met you at our friend John Whittington's place, the Tap in College Station, and it must have been mid-'90s, and we were playing, Justin and I from the Pat Band were playing at a bunch of places like that, doing our cover stuff. And I ended up talking to you that night and playing a little bit at a fraternity party with you at the Beta House, I think. And I remember it being the first time I'd ever played with anyone who could play mostly their own songs, and that was an interesting thing. Can you talk? Do you have any memories? I'm serious. I mean, do you have any memories about that time? Because what I remember.
Why is he laughing?
Fred's just laughing. So, do you have memories about like the John Dixon, Hang 'em High, Tap kind of days after you'd moved from Lubbock? Because we'll get into the ancient history before that, but I want to talk about how you got kind of some traction and got rolling a little bit.
Yeah, you're going way back. I remember. I vaguely remember our first meeting in those days. There was a lot of haziness. I remember showing up to a lot of places. I don't remember leaving. I guess that's typical.
Fair enough.
Fair enough. John Dixon and Mark Shaberg had a company, and they were doing promotions. And I think Mark was in a band. I think a cover band.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah,
He was.
Bob Popular
Bob Popular
was the name of the club and the band.
Oh my gosh, that's taking it back.
Taking it way back.
That's also taking it in a good step for yourself, getting the club and the band name.
Yes.
Yeah.
Marketing genius. What was John Dixon's role in all that? Was he just doing promotions at that point?
He had moved from doing those college trips to promoting live music somewhat. Yeah,
Okay.
He hadn't started Steamboat as we know it today, but he'd already started that trip up there. He'd done the Mexico trips, and then he was starting to put college type music in front of college type buyers, and doing it really well.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's right. So I
remember when you had that. I'll just fill in one more gap. So I remember when you were starting to do that, you had an EP. It was I think The Preacher was on it, and you'd cut it yourself. Danny Hawk, Brian Farabee, Jens Pinkernell, Ryan Lynch, probably. Yeah.
Just going back. Yeah, that was the first real album. We had an EP before that, little 5-song EP with it was a picture of the Texas flag on the cover, so you had no idea what songs were on it or who it was by or anything like that. It was genius marketing on our part. But I had started out in Austin and given like cassette tapes to fraternities and sororities, and then found a home at O. Henry's Back 40 on Netchess, which is now I think it's a Hyatt or Hilton or something.
That sounds about right.
And we play there. I think it was every Thursday, something to that effect. And then I think Mark I'm not sure how that meeting happened, but he came to me with a Tuesday night play at Pete's Piano Bar. And then we every Tuesday, and then we started to get so we stopped playing the Back 40 and we started playing Pete's Piano Bar. And then Dixon came along with the Hang 'em High opportunity. And somewhere around the same time as when we started playing the Tap on Wednesdays. So there was about a year's worth of playing when it was me and Ryan and Jens, and we would play the Tap on Pete's Piano Bar Tuesday, the Tap on Wednesday, and Hang 'em High on Thursday. And Hang 'em High, we found a drummer, and so we started kind of having a full band for that show. And that's kind of when things I think really started to take off for us. Pete's was filling up, the Tap was filling up, and we were having a party every week, and lots of people coming in and just having a ball. And I was constantly writing and playing. They were receptive of the new music, which is really neat to be able to go into a place and say, I'm gonna play something new, and they'd listen and they'd cheer. And by the end of it, they might even be singing along, that they cared that much about it. And then Hang 'em High just became such an amazing opportunity because we get to open up for so many bands. John made us the house band. So it was Hang 'em High, Outlaw Thursdays, and he had, with host, with our name. And I got to open up for Merle Haggard, the Bellamy Brothers, I think Willie Nelson, and back then it was Gary P. Nunn and Chris Wall, and just and David Allan Coe. I mean, it was just this huge list of outlaw country heroes of mine, and we got to open up for them every week. So it was just that's kind of things started happening. So this is when I remember like the Cory Morrow
the Cory Morrow buzz really starting. And I was looking around for bands that, that I was interested in trying to meet them because it was different then. You actually had to go talk to people then. And I remember that's when the buzz was kind of starting. It was the scene was kind of kicking off, and you were right there in the middle of it. But that didn't kind of happen overnight. You're a Houston guy, right? You started out and then ended up at Tech, and I remember like hearing the kind of stories about the sort of song pulls, the guitar pulls you and Pat were doing, and then playing at the houses out there. I mean, you were right in the middle of that before you moved to Austin. Is that right?
Yeah, that's pretty much right. That was the catalyst for me when we were in college. It was once a week we'd go over to David Henry's apartment, and that's through Paige Blanton. That's where I met Pat, and we would stay up all night, and we'd be pulling CDs off of his wall and throwing them in and trying to learn the songs. And neither one of us, me or Pat, were really good at. We didn't have an ear for that kind of stuff. We'd get lucky and find like one chord that was right, and then basically play an entire song off of one chord that was actually wrong. But we did. It was good enough for the guys in the room, and that turned into twice a week, then every night. And finally they got us a gig because it was 30 guys in this little apartment drinking all night and looking around, and there's no girls, but me and Pat are playing music for them. And they're like, something has to change. We need to get you guys a gig. And me and Pat, I specifically remember we looked at each other and we're like, what's a gig? Like, you're going fishing? No, man, they're going to get you a gig. You're going to play some music in a bar and girls are going to show up. And I was like, what do you think about that? Pat's like, yeah, that could work. So that happened twice. I think 2 weeks in a row. We played on a Tuesday at Bash Rip Rocks. The first week it was huge. Second week was not quite as huge because they had done it the week before. But that was it. That was all I needed. That was the taste that took me over the edge. And so I called my parents pretty much that second week and told them I was leaving school and was going to move to Austin and make a run for it.
So this is the line I want to connect. So that's why I took a detour to go back a little bit. So you met that group of guys in Lubbock. I've been to that house. I've been to Stubbs and seen, and the beer garden and seen where those things happen, and played some of them myself. Like, this was sort of a rowdy group, but definitely some great things came out of it. But you kind of led the way for a new group of people to move to Austin and start making their own stuff, their own songs they'd written, right? Chris Wall was happening in town. There's a whole list of folks who were happening in town, but for the new round of this Texas singer-songwriter group, you kind of led the way. And I'm pretty sure, Pat ended up coming to Austin because you were seeing some success there. Would you say that's kind of accurate? Or?
Oh, for sure. Pat would come and open up for us at the Hingham High Saloon, and he'd come and sit in at Pete's Piano Bar and O'Henry's Back 40, and he brought Lloyd with him, and that's where I met Lloyd Maines because he had done his record with him up in Lubbock. And a big piece of what people don't remember was Clay Blaker's house, and it would happen every week. And I think it was after the Monday. Our weeks were very full. I don't know how any of us had day jobs because we had a Monday night was the jam down in San Marcos, and I met John Carroll and John Owens and a bunch of folks through that. But we'd go to Clay Blaker's house, and he had several acres and a big house and a pool, and everybody would go over there. Just everybody was a musician. Doug Moreland. Nick Worley, you've got fiddle players and guitar players. I think even the Braun brothers would show up, and Clay and his wife would cook steaks for everybody. I'm talking like 30 or 40 steaks, and they'd cut them up, and we'd all eat like kings in the middle of the night. We'd be just up all night, and we'd be doing the guitar pulls all night. We'd play music until everybody just got tired or passed out, and I decided they wanted to go swimming. And it was those kind of things started happening because we all got to bring our new stuff and play it for each other. And you'd start seeing new guys showing up. What's his name? It was in that movie. Bingham. Man, first time I saw Bingham, it was like he's sitting there in the round, and he was the newest guy. We all thought we were really, really cool. and Bingham plays a song and then just passes the guitar off to Doug Moreland, and we all look at him and look at each other. John Dixon was there, and John's like, "Where'd this guy come from?" And he's just smiling, Ryan's just smiling. And
wearing the biggest hat you've ever seen.
Well,
I was wasn't he playing Momo's? Didn't he have a regular thing at Momo's?
I don't even know that was happening at that.
We're going way back, because this is there wasn't even a place to play your kind of music, Cory, in Austin.
That's
when you
right.
first started. I mean, there was like Saxon Pub, Antone's, all the places that we used to watch live bands play. There wasn't a place for a singer songwriter.
Not for us
in Austin.
Not
for us. And you in Hang 'em High, you started creating this whole scene. Is I think what Brendan was getting at is like you're leading the charge for people to get out. And play in front of bigger people and have more people come to see them out on 6th Street or in Austin, because that wasn't there. I was trying to play that same scene, and it was hard to get a gig.
It was hard. You're right. The Pete's was good, but you could only fill so many people into Pete's, and that was really that's where the success started to happen. Was we'd fill it up on Tuesdays and have people coming in and one out kind of thing, and that was just like really amazing. And then we did Babes on 6th Street. There was a bar side and the bar side and restaurant side, but that helped grow from there. And that's when we brought a full band together. And but yeah, I mean, the Hang 'em High thing really did kind of kick everything off for us. And then you start playing more fraternity gigs, and then you get on fairs and festivals, and then you can start trying to find places to actually go and ticket the door.
I think I want to.
John Dixon was the guy that really helped start. I mean, John and Mark Shaberg, these guys were really instrumental.
They spearheaded marketing and managing and booking for us, and finding places that would give us a home.
Yeah, he was a promoter. He and Mark were promoters who really weren't afraid to promote, and they created that scene. And I remember the posters saying like, everyone else is going to be here. You better be here too, kind of thing. I mean, that was the idea for all of them. That's where the party's going to be. But the line, Fred, the line I'm trying to draw, and it's Cory's touching on everything, is there wasn't a place for that kind of music to come back. There were different people who were doing their own versions of it. But that scene that we kind of recognize now is almost plug and play with a built-in massive crowd just wasn't there in any way, shape, or form back then. And I remember seeing it for the first time myself, because I was going to A&M and I was a kid. I just started at A&M, and seeing it at Wolfpen Creek. The funny story I always tell is I was booked to play with you at Wolfpen Creek, and Shaberg and John had the huge show with Robert Earl. There was a big rainstorm. It canceled. You couldn't do the rebook because of your sister's wedding, I think. And I kept the backstage pass, and that's where I met Pat. I mean, this scene was that weird and funny back then, right? So, I want to point out that I'm using all of this to point out that you were there really gutting it out, helping to create this scene that we can look back today and go, oh, yeah, well, it's always been there. Well, it really wasn't, Fred. Mm-hmm. You're right. So, the music you had in the can at that point, the relationships with Lloyd that you made, the relationships with John Dixon, Shaberg, the folks who ran those clubs that were willing to give you the chance to play. John Whittington, I'll put him on that list too. And Adon and Howie, who were kind of bumping around there, learning how to run bars at that point. I mean, that's fun times. But they started to create a buzz and a scene that is still kind of burning to this day. We see the new group coming along. That's great, but it wasn't really there, or it was not kicked off in earnest. So.
Brendan, sorry to interrupt you, but I think it was so instrumental. Like, just we talk about Austin and Austin music and how important it's been to so many things, but I think that this was the moment. I was just starting high school at this moment, and we'd all grown up listening to Garth or Alan Jackson.
I was 45. You were
but we'd all grown up listening to country, and it was never approachable, right? It'd play the Irwin Center or something like that, and that was it. And you guys were the first moment that kids could really latch onto, and whether it was from high school all the way to college. I think so many of us grew up with so many of you guys because of this trail you guys blazed, and it was our chance to really experience Austin and Austin music. I mean, we were sneaking into bars we shouldn't have been in, and sneaking into frat parties that we were way too young for, but just to see people play, and the girls and the drinking were a nice side effect at the time, but it was. They
were definitely a piece of the attraction. The thing for me personally that that we started to see and do that I had not experienced in high school until I got to college was going and seeing guys like Robert Earl Keen and really being able to go see Jerry Jeff and things like that. But Robert really changed the game for me as far as what a concert and what songwriting and a show was all about. And then we saw guys like Jacko Pierce and Jack Ingram. And when we saw Jack Ingram, he's only a few years older than us, and he had made a record like right out of high school, and it was good. And we were like listening to it and thinking it's 3 chords and he's given his version of the truth. And it was like, I just loved it. And I started following him and falling in love with his stuff. And that gave us hope. It gave me and Pat, we looked up at each other at some point. We tried to write our first song, and we kind of used that as the model. And so while we were, I think, a part of things kind of getting going, seeing guys like Jack and Jacko Pierce kind of step, because Jacko Pierce was huge in College Station. I mean, that was a big thing for me too. When I was first year in college, all my friends from high school that were at A&M were talking about this group, and you know, go and see them, and you couldn't get in because the place was sold out and there's people everywhere. And we're just like, oh man, wouldn't this be cool one day if we could get to that level? And you know, so they were definitely trying to find places to play, and it was happening before we got there. But it definitely when Pat and us, and I think Roger and kind of started, and Kevin Fowler, you know, we all started kind of running around at the same time, and it started to just blow up, and places started kind of I think deciding that this is something that they needed to latch onto, because the kids were coming out, you know. And that was the college crowd really for me are the ones that I am the most grateful to, because they came in Austin and in A&M. They came out in droves and just fully supported us everywhere we went.
And then you could replicate that. You could replicate that in different college markets. You know, you could say, right, we did great at this venue. You know about this venue. This model can work in San Marcos, and it can work in Lubbock and SMU,
Dallas, Fort Worth. So, right, exactly. Yeah, the Robesons, from my perspective, were a little bit. I think they were happening before, but it was more of the Saxon Pub, a crew, and at Monty Montgomery, you've got guys that are like way ahead of us, light years ahead of us, more mature as far as their musical ability and understanding. But they were in a scene that was not as well supported by the masses. You know, they were more supported by the intellectuals and the people that were, really appreciative of musical form, but they were not coming out to sing along and drink beer and have a good time. They were coming out to listen.
But you were writing songs for your crowd, for the people that were listening to you, and that's sure. And that's amazing. And that if you win that secret, you're going to be successful. And so, I mean, I think that's amazing. Like the Monty Montgomerys, the Bruce Robinsons, the Breedloves, Vallejo, you know, they all had residencies around. I'm just speaking of Austin, but that wasn't your crowd or the people you were appealing to.
Right. I don't think that I was attractive to them either, because I was young and immature and singing, you know, about beer and tacos and
the important stuff. Like, I think so.
You sing to what you know, and at that time, that's what I knew. I, was just kind of feeling my way through life. So
and that goes further to what I'm going to talk about later, is how your life leads your songs. I believe, from the time you're in college to now, your life leads your singing and your songwriting. So it's great. It's true.
Let's not jump all the way there yet. So I think we've established that there's a scene that you helped create, and there were people you looked up to in the scene. There was a lot of music getting made. I've always thought, and I think I'm right here, you've always made good records. You've always made good sounding records as well. It's not just enough to go, play a great song in front of a crowd. You've always backed it up with some really good records. And you met Lloyd early on. So the first record you did, not with Lloyd, but then you had a great run of records with him. You worked with Keith Gaddis as well. You've worked with some really interesting producers. Can you talk just real briefly, if you'd like, about how working with guys like Lloyd has sort of created the sound that you've played for 20 plus years now. I mean, that was an important part of it, I have to think.
Yeah, I think you're right. And it's been a really fun journey to see the differences that come out from the different producers that you work with. Even on compilation albums and things that I've done, I can hear and feel the producer's input, and you can tell whether or not they're hearing what you're hearing and able to get it out. The thing that was really fun and easy about working with Lloyd was, I don't speak musicians' language very well. I'm much better than I was 20 years ago, but for the longest time, I didn't know how to talk to a drummer, or how to even talk to a guitar player and to get across like what I'm feeling. And I would have to like take samples of songs to say, this is the idea, like not this drum beat, but this idea is what I want to hear in this part of the song. And Lloyd would listen to it and he'd go, oh, okay, I think I know what you're talking about. And he'd go talk to the drummer. You need to go to the 4/4 here and a 2/4 there and a halftime with double sticks. And it was like having a translator at the UN. I could talk to any country, and it was beautiful. And he made it just so much fun. Plus his stories were hilarious, and he was always on,
Mhm.
And he was very much a father figure, man. He loved us. He loved us. He cared about us. He cared about our music, cared about the product. And he also was never going to take advantage of us. He, to this day, prides himself on never having taken points on a record. He says, my job is done when the last check is paid for, and you don't need to be writing me checks when you're selling a product. I'm helping you make the product. My name's on the product, and that's all I need. And he paid me for my time. So there's different mentalities about that, but he was working with him was liberating.
Lloyd was fantastic at like taking something that was raw and helping the artist who didn't speak that language create something really good out of it, right? So
absolutely. You
go play your songs for him, and then you're going to get something, and he'll help fill in a lot of the gaps. Plus, he had this language entirely his own when he was talking in the studio. I mean, I think 90% of the cliche things I say if I go back in the studio are Lloydisms.
They're ripoffs,
Right.
yeah.
Did you bring
Don't
your
bore
tuner?
us. Get to the chorus.
Did you bring a
Did
tuner? Are you using it?
You reading your chart?
You
did
tune
bring a
every
tuner?
show?
Are you using it? Yeah, I mean,
Just tug on that B string.
right.
So I think it would be really interesting, and for us, the musicians and the artists that have worked with him over the years, which there are probably literally hundreds. I think it'd be really interesting to have because he's probably still got tapes of us playing our songs just acoustic, sending him a list of the songs we want to record, and then the finished product, and have him put out albums, if it's okay with each artist, of the raw tapes that were sent prior to that song becoming the song you heard on the radio.
Ooh,
Some of the stuff that we sent him was terrible. Yeah, some is terrible. But to Brendan's point, he takes a turd and polishes up, and nobody knew any different. But that's the thing that
I got phone calls asking me to do that from Lloyd.
Well, he loves us so much, and he hears what it is we're trying to get across, even though we don't have the ability to really get it across yet. And he sees the potential in the song that we gave him. He can feel the heart and the soul out of it, or he can take it and say, yeah, I can work with this. I can make something out of this. And it was just, man, he has skills. He got a very, very beautiful gift. And, worked with Keith Gaddis a couple of times, and that was really fun too, because Keith forced me to try to sing differently and to push myself a little bit more in a direction that he felt I was naturally trying to go, which is more of a rock and roll. Like the Led Zeppelin side of me was always trying to get out. And so he sort of embraced that and let me push that a little bit in the singing and the music. And so it was really nice to have that difference, and to have, and plus, we're closer in age. And so we giggled around a lot, and had certain things that we understood a little bit more closely, rather than working with Lloyd, who's, more your senior. So you always feel that a little bit of, you got to kind of like, yes, sir, kind of thing,
It is like working with your dad. So
it is.
So when you have you have all these records under your belt now, and you're still making more, but can you look back and just off the top of your head, the scene was getting bigger, more and more listeners. It was an exciting time because when you're on your way up for the first time, super exciting. Nothing quite compares to that. Can you think of a moment you released a record, or which set of songs you remember really being the ones you're most excited about, paired with the scene you were helping to create? I mean, can you think back about when that was?
Yeah, we did the first live recording we did was a thing. The record was the Double Exposure record, and it was 2 live albums, an acoustic and an electric, and we did 4 shows: Austin, Dallas, College Station, and Houston, and we recorded live each show, and we got our fans to donate to pay for it. It was sort of like the first what's that?
Kickstarter.
Yeah, yeah. Before Kickstarter became Kickstarter, it was my buddy's. He came up with this idea. Let's get the fans to donate, and in exchange, we'll put their name on the record and do all this stuff. And so we put it out there, and man, they came in quick and filled up the bank account, and we took the money and we went out and made the shows. And the funny part was, when it was all said and done, we actually lost money because we didn't charge. We gave people too many tickets. Like with your purchase price, you got X amount of tickets, and so they'd fill the place up, and then we were like lacking in funds. Anyway, we had enough to make the record, and I just remember that being one of the neatest experiences. And Poor David's Pub was the one that I remember the most, because I think we took probably about 90% of the 2 records recordings came from that show, and maybe more. Yeah, the old one, the old room.
Fun and great place, man. Absolutely.
It was great, and people came in, and it was full. And when we walked out on stage, they just made you feel like you're a rock star. And my parents were in the audience, and it was just like, it was one of the neatest moments. I'll never forget that whole night. We played good, man. We were on fire and tight and feeling all the grooves, and I just remember that being, and people were, as soon as you start playing the opening line of the song, they'd start cheering. That was kind of a moment. That was like, okay, something's happening here with the career that you hear other live albums in your life. I mean, Eric Clapton's and things like that, where I remember he starts playing a little riff and the crowd goes crazy, and you're like, it's Layla, and it's that kind of thing when people were just really familiar with what you were doing and excited that you were going to include them on this live album. So
nice.
Yeah,
I think that there's you can be in the middle of putting a huge crowd together, and then these right songs can come along at the right time and just pour gas on this massive amounts of gas on this fire. I remember the way up for a lot of bands that I was working with or around, and I remember a set of songs for you, that got summed up on that record that just perfectly sort of spoke for that time, from being at Poor David's all the way to, being at a Pete's Piano Bar all the way up to doing that live record, but the crowds that came along with it. I think Robert had a record like that too. That was a live record, live number 2. I think you just played in the anniversary edition of it, but he had that record that's like, this is a time capsule of what's been going on for the past several years, and it's a perfect sum up of a kind of like a really fun ascendant time. That was great to watch. It was great to hear. It's like I remember seeing the shows when you were coming up. I even played some of them, and watching those things kind of blow up in front of your eyes and having the songs to go along with it was really fun.
It was, and the band members that came along at that time. John Carroll joined the band for that. We didn't have a guitar player for that show. Like we were making a live record, and we didn't have a guitar player, and I called him up, and I think he was just leaving Nashville. He's just about ready to leave. Like the timing was perfect, and it was divine, and.
Well, you've had a decades-long relationship with John now as like the anchor member of your band. I mean, that's if there's a person that defines a sound in a band more than maybe Pete Anderson with Dwight, or I don't know, name me maybe a couple more, but John's got to be that guy for you, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I feel like you with Pat for so many years, but that's exactly honestly what it feels like. And it's sometimes I feel like if I go out and play just by myself, I feel a little bit naked, but it's also, it's a strengthening thing, honestly, in this last 6 months or so, being able to play a little bit more on my own is made me a little bit more confident. But yeah, playing with him it's definitely, there's a uniqueness to it, and I know that other musicians are gathering around to watch him play, and it reminds me not to take it for granted, because I hear those amazing, God-given talents every single night, and so you can become numb to it and just sort of expect it. But I don't think there's a night where he plays where I don't just look at him and go,
"Jeez." Every note.
That's insane.
John's just one of the very rare guys that, and the musicians gathered around, here's what they're saying, because I'm always one of them. Even if I'm on stage playing with him, he'll elevate what I'm doing, or at least change it. It's like playing with a really great golfer, I guess, or something. But
that's it.
He's just amazing. But he's one of the few guys, and there are a handful I've been around, who can think something and play it at the same time. If I have a good idea on the violin or guitar or something, I might wait till the next pass to try it, because it's gone. The moment's gone.
Well,
you know what I mean?
That's beautiful that you have that. I got to go work it out on a piece of paper with a ruler, and spend time and get some cement mix and find somebody help you pour a form.
I think you're selling yourself short.
I mean, we need a saw and some nails, and I mean, it's going to take a while for me to put this solo together.
There's a reason why John Carroll probably didn't join till then, is because when you're sitting there with holding both those guitars on the cover of that double exposure, you're holding up a shitty ass electric guitar. Was it a Jackson or something?
Well, we set it on fire. That's what was so fun about it. It was just terrible. That was the point. It was just some throwaway guitar, so we lit it on fire, and I'm holding it.
Whoever plays guitar with me has to play this guitar.
Right. And John's like, I can play that guitar.
He could do that.
Yeah, he can. He could play a flaming Jackson or whatever, Ibanez, whatever you got.
He could play a one-string guitar and still outplay most anybody on the stage.
I agree.
For sure.
Well, hey, Fred, you and I were talking before the sort of the pre-setup here. I think,
yep.
I love, and I'm fascinated with the live side of this whole scene that I've been a part of for a long time with Cory, and the origins of it are fascinating to me. But there's a whole different element, Cory, of your product, right? And that's an earnest attempt to write really good songs, and an earnest attempt to record really good songs and present those too. You mentioned something that I think you're incredibly modest, and I respect that. But you said there was some music for intellectuals being made by another group, but I think when you plug yourself in next to those folks, you hold your own 100%. And Fred and I were talking a little bit about that, and what your songwriting approach is, and I'm interested to hear more about that too, because it's not all about the beer you sold at the concerts. That's not what it's all about.
True.
Well, thank you for all those words, man. I received those graciously. I've always wanted to try to write stuff that made people think, or it was, a lot of it was therapeutic. Like when I was about 8 or 9, I started to see a therapist, like when I was a little kid. And all through high school, we had a family therapist, and it was just sort of a thing my mom thought was important. So I was always talking about my feelings and always trying to work through them and navigate them. And when the writing songs thing started happening, the first song that I ever wrote was about a kid that died in a car crash. He was a fraternity brother, and he was my responsibility. Everybody was my responsibility. I was the key master for the night, and I had given his keys to a girlfriend of his who was sober, and she said, I'm gonna get him home. All is good. So that was the last key, and next thing I know, I'm being woken up at 4 a.m, and he had taken the keys from her somehow and gotten in his car and drove off, and had crashed into a tree. And it was the first person that I had really known that was anywhere near my age that I was close to, that had passed away. And I wrote a song that, like, I just sat down and started writing about what was going on in my heart and my head. And I don't really ever play that song, but it kind of spurred things on for me to want to just try to write stuff that was relatable and real, and work through the stuff that's going on inside me and try to figure out what it's all about. I've written songs where I'm trying to find my faith, and I'm trying to figure out why I have a drug habit, and what's gonna be the end result of this, and I'm constantly like going inside my brain and trying to work it out. And at the same time, there's the other side of it where it's just, you want to just not think too much and just have fun. So I did like, I liked both sides of it. I didn't want to stay too serious for too long, but I do like to try to write a good song. I like to write a song where you play it and somebody's like, yeah, you put it into words that I've been trying to put it into. And that usually happens when I'm co-writing with somebody really good too. And that's pretty neat feeling when you can get that across.
Fantastic. And when I said that you write to your crowd, that was, the early days, that even Texas Time Traveler, that's an intelligent song. It's a good song. I mean,
it's historically inaccurate, but
it's not drinking beer and
it's proof that I quit
hot
college.
Dogs. Yeah.
But even
It's
when you're
proof.
singing, when you're writing about drinking, I mean, Drinking Alone's a great song too. I mean,
yeah.
it's even when you're talking about subjects that could be, I don't know, rowdy or whatever else.
Right.
I still think
I always
they're
thought that was
well-crafted songs.
I always thought that was a funny one that people like to hear, because it was like, if you're listening to the words, it's like, it's a little bit dark, it's a little bit sad. And there was another one, Staying Out Late. I think that one is basically talking about what a mess of a guy I am, like I'm a total disaster of a human being. And it's like, but it's a rock and roll theme. And you're tapping to my dad. I played it for my dad the first time, and he was just like, that's a great song. And I'm like, you didn't listen to a single word, did you? Talking about what a disaster of a guy I am. So anyway.
I think it's great if the character is not doing it 8 days a week.
Right.
I think if you're going to go do that Saturday night and you're going out to see a Cory show, you'll play that song and really get fired up for it.
Right.
But if you're the guy in the song and it's just Tuesday now and you're going to stay out late in the honky tonk bar, maybe rethink a couple things. I don't know.
So I want to, we did this whole podcast is the moment you made it. And you expressed earlier that Double Exposure album was like the feel like you go, man, there's something really here. The Poor David's Pub shows, that was it for you, right? That was like, okay, this is something. People are cheering at when I start the song. The moment you made it for me is we're talking about. Well, I think we going to go to that right now? Is that okay, guys?
You got to define the word "it."
It's up to you.
Right.
That's the beauty of it, right?
Yeah. So we each have our moment. Nick, myself, and Brendan have a moment that we feel that you've made it. And we were sitting in a car, Cory, in Galveston, Texas. This is a couple of years ago. You were headlining Mardi Gras Galveston.
Yeah.
And you and I just sat in a car and chatted a little bit. You wanted to have a conversation with me. I feel like I needed it. So the moment you made it for me is like, your life does lead your songs. You're very truthful when you write. Your songs now, it seem like you are just experiencing and finding yourself and finding your faith. And it's just, it's a good time to hear your music. But we're sitting there and you're talking about how truthful you are to yourself and into Sherry, your wife. And you went very truthful. You're more truthful to yourself and her than I think I am just to myself. It's amazing. You're like, can I go into it? I mean, is it all right, Cory?
Sure. Yeah, of course.
I mean, you were talking about like, from pornography to even thinking about girls, like, oh, I looked at a girl a little bit too long. And like you tell your wife that. Mm-hmm. You realize that you're doing that. And I'm like, that's amazing, because I don't have the courage or the faith to open up that much to anybody, even to myself.
I don't necessarily recommend that form of communication with your wife. I think my wife is extremely special and unique, and that's honestly something that we used for a long time while our marriage was healing, and it was a way to build trust and communication, and we have not since that time that we got together, but not too long now, have sort of ceased that level of openness and intimacy. She knows my heart, and she knows my head, and she can look at my face, and she doesn't have to ask, and I don't have to tell. We've kind of gotten onto a new plateau of understanding. And but it was a very good thing, I think, for what it was and when it was, to be able to do that. And yeah, I don't necessarily think it's a great thing for most people, but it was something I felt, because of what had happened in our marriage. I felt like I needed to go find a way to let her know that I'm in and that I'm not going anywhere. And I needed to find out, like, the root of the problem for me, in the things that I was doing that was damaging to me and what was damaging to our relationship. And so once I started to discover what that was, as I started finding all this literature on it to support, where I was realizing my behavior was coming from, and then communication with other men. And I just kind of got to this place where it was like, I would like to start sharing with you what's going on inside here and here. And she's like, okay. And it was honestly, it was eye-opening for her to recognize kind of the battle that we all men go through. And so it was definitely a growing time.
That's
yeah. That's why I say I don't recommend it. It's a big piece to chew, and it can turn unhealthy, it can easily turn unhealthy. So I think it was necessary for me. And I've only met one other person that has told me that they did a similar thing. Most of the people are like, they're honest about things that they do, not things that they think or actions that they take, as far as like taking too long of a look. That's not something that most people go into. And I'm not necessarily think it's a good thing for anybody, but I was really trying to hold myself accountable and break down the walls that were keeping us apart from the things that I'd done before.
You chose Sherry. You could choose this life that was, a life that you had was kind of rocky, and even on your bio on your front, CoryMorrow.com, it says the cocaine days and the fun days, the crazy days, and then now the faith, and you found this. I mean, you chose Sherry. You chose to go that way, and go that deep, and that's amazing. And I feel like, to me, I mean, we're talking about music, which I could talk to you all day long about how great your records sound, how much that song meant to me, and how when I was starting to write songs and play gigs, that you were so kind and even had us play at Hang 'em High. I could say all those things, which I just did, but the moment you made it for me is when we had that conversation. I was like, this is a man. He's choosing his wife, and I think it's amazing.
Brother, thank you. That means everything to me. That you would say that, because that's where it was for me too. That was the day, and it's actually coming up. September 24th, 2012 is the day I got sober, and the day that I got saved, and the day that I made the choice of her and my family over myself. So, thank you.
Amazing.
Yeah, mine. My moment you made it doesn't really come close to that one, and I feel bad following it with mine. But
you can edit and do his first.
Yeah, exactly. Mine's like very not that doesn't have that much depth to it. But I talked a little bit about how it was. I mean, you and Pat were the two that. I mean, you couldn't find a car in our high school parking lot that didn't have y'all's CDs in them and didn't have y'all's autograph on the CDs. That we'd met y'all so many times that
we used to drive around and try to find cars with our stickers on it, and see who could take the most pictures of stickers, and like who would win each day. Like, I found 20 cars with my sticker on it. Oh, I found 30.
Dude, it was crazy. They were everywhere. And but for me, it was funny. Like, the moment it was the first time, because we would wear out George's Bar and Man That I've Been, and like those were the records those were like our records. We would go to the shows as many times as we could get in, and it was like ours, like we felt like we were part of the process. And the funny thing was, I remember I still remember exactly where I was, who I was with, and I was with Reed Essel in the back of we were in his Z71 on Travis Cook headed towards Southwest Parkway, and he had K-Vet on. And I'm sure it was one of those, next big thing where they, because back then nobody played anything local really, like Case or anybody like that. It was just like, that didn't happen, but they were doing something, and they played Texas Time Traveling, and we pulled the truck over and like freaked out, because we were like, it's happening, like, you know, like this is it. And like, and so for us, and for me, it was, that might not necessarily been a moment in your career that you even know happened, but I think it was like, we felt like this thing that we had been a part of, you know, watching you from single A baseball all the way to now. This was the moment, you know, and like, and so I thought that was, I mean, it always stuck with me for some reason.
That's really cool.
So not as much as Fred's.
Well,
That's fantastic. This is great, Nick.
The first time that I had heard my song on the radio was KGSR. I took it into gosh, what was his name? He had two first names. It was like Matt Matthews, but it wasn't Matt Matthews. It was another guy. And I took it in, and they basically put it in his inbox, and he never really. I was like, I'm not sure he's going to get it, and or not sure he's going to listen to it. And the next morning, I'm driving around doing my courier job, driving around in my truck delivering packages around Austin. And I've got the KGSR was like 107.1 back then. Yep. Driving around. All of a sudden,
Kevin Connor. Kevin Connor.
At like 9:16 a.m.
Nice.
He's like, oh, I got this yesterday. This young man dropped this off, and I think it's pretty good. I want to play it and play a song from it. And he put on the very first track. You know, he put it in and hit play, and I was like, and you know, you don't have cell phones back then, so trying to call Ryan Lynch and Paul Lee. And I've got a delivery. I'm like on the middle of an ASAP delivery. I've got to get to this other location as soon as possible. And my boss is like on my tail, and I'm trying to find a phone, you know, pay phone. And I end up in the office of the place that I was going to. But by the time I got there, the song was over. I was trying to call him to tell him to tune in because it was playing. But I don't know if that was the same kind of feeling like you had got. I feel more like what you're saying when I first heard it on KBET. That was kind of like, okay, this is it. Something's happening here. And I remember hearing Pat being interviewed with Bob Cole the first time that happened, and I was pissed off because he was in my town being interviewed on the radio station.
That happened some.
That's really cool, man. Thank you.
Man, I gotta say, this is gonna be a complicated one, and I'll try to get through it as fast as I can. Sorry. Yeah, Fred and Nick have both touched on things that I remember and I feel about you. Having known you and having been close to you as long as I have, you know, one of the joys of my life has been able to jump on and play on a record of yours or do what we did last night. I mean,
yeah,
just that we've been able to make music, you know, not constantly together, but together for 20 plus years has been an absolute just joy. I mean, it's been one of those things, but that's a really long and winding journey that we've all taken to be at the place where we are now. And yours, I think you'd admit, has taken more turns than most. And it's maybe people know more about it because you've been so upfront about it. And Fred touched on that. You know, the learning journey for you, you'd like to make available for anybody who's going through something or is thinking that things can't change or you can't change them. So, you know, I think probably your made it moment for me, is a series of choices you've made from when I first met you till today. You've chosen to write your own songs. You've chosen to make them in a way that makes sense to you. You've built your own crowd. You trusted your crowd to come along with you on a journey because you're not the same guy you were when you were writing the songs at the beginning that roped so many people into you, you know, and it's just been amazing to watch. I think if I had to put a finger on it, it's more of a feeling than a moment. And it's, I think it's a feeling that it comes up when I'm around you and John, and there's a relaxed, just a happiness about playing music now that it was a little bit fraught at the beginning. You know, there was a little bit more of an expectation that something insane could happen tonight after the show maybe, or we didn't quite know how it was going to turn out. We didn't quite know how we'd all be as friends the next day because we didn't know what was going to happen, you know, the night after the show. I mean, that's a real thing. And there's a real relaxed happiness now that comes along with, you know, being around you and your group of people.
Man, thank you for that. I think that, I think I agree with you on that. And there's a peace and a comfort and a joy definitely in our lives now. And I think the expectation thing is, I'm always a little concerned, you know, with the expectation of whether people are going to care and show up. But at the end of the day, I just love playing music. And when I can't play music, it feels like, you know, I'm missing a foot. And the piece for me, when I made a change as far as my faith and the direction of my life and the choices that I was making, as far as the drinking on stage and the drugs and the womanizing and all that, and the way that I lived my life off stage, that was sort of written into the songs. When I decided to change that, you know, going down that path and hoping that our fans would follow was honestly really scary. And, but it was just, there wasn't any other way to go. You know, I couldn't go another direction. I had to go down this road and see if it led to the next step. And I was really, I think we're just really fortunate and really blessed that a lot of the fans stayed with us. I mean, I remember I used to get on and be active on Facebook and MySpace and people. There were a couple of people. I mean, I remember it. He said, "I'm out. You know, I don't know who you are, and I don't want to know who this guy is." And you're singing, talking about Jesus on stage. He's like, I'm not coming out to listen to that crap. And he signed off, and I was like, oh, dang it. You know, like, how many more people are going to be like that? And I think I deleted my account at that point. I was like, I don't need to be online looking at this anymore. I just need to go forward doing what I'm going to do and hope that folks will want to come along with me. And so it's been a long, interesting road, but it's definitely been it's been rewarding. And so the feeling I think you're talking about, I completely I thank you for saying that. I think I feel that feeling too. And so it's not I was looking at the title of your podcast when I was kind of getting roused this morning, waking up and kind of
aroused,
stirring. Yeah, I said the wrong word.
That's weird.
Said the wrong word. When I was stirring this morning and waking up, I was looking at the title of the podcast, and I was like, yeah, I don't know that's not like a phrase that I think about. And as far as that definition or the definition that I would want to say for me is more along the lines of a spiritual sense in that I made it through the fire, and I didn't die, and I didn't kill anybody. And
the moment you made it through,
we survived. Yeah, we survived. You know, and it was like
that phrase.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, there are so many times, and Brendan's, you know, been there for a few, that
sure,
there's just no reason. There's no reason in the world why something catastrophic didn't happen. And some of the things could have gone so much worse. And so I'm just grateful, man. I'm grateful that I'm trying to make better decisions, and that my head's on screwed on a little bit tighter. And you're starting to have things that you care more about, that you're living for. And I think that maturity or that elevation in your life is something we all can now relate to. And some people decide to grow up a little bit later than others, but we're all trying to get to that place where it's like you can let go of the a-hole that you used to be and be a mature adult and still be fun and still, you know, enjoy your life and not have to have everybody look at you jumping off of a house into the flaming pool.
Well, that was fun.
A golden
too.
god.
That was fun too. But let me say, I think you know, one more thing to say, and then I think, you know, we'd love for you to play a tune for us. But one more thing I'll say is I think that, you know, the moment you make it, the moment you made it, can mean anything to anyone you ask. And I think that, you know, you're making it through all of the twists and turns that you've made it through to arrive at this place has made a profound impact on the people in the scene around you too. You know, you're a stabilizing element amongst people who were very much living in a similar way, yeah. You know, that you were, and most people we knew were back when the scene was created and it was fun and seemed relatively consequence free, relatively I say, but you know, the fact that you've made the decisions you have and have trusted people around you to go along with your decisions has been just a wonderful, beautiful stabilizing element to so many people and an example to so many. But Fred, Nick, I think we talked earlier, and Cory, we talked a little bit last night about whether or not you'd be comfortable playing a song to wrap the thing up.
Sure. That'd be amazing. Love to hear you play.
Thank you guys for including me on this, man, and wanting me to be a part of it. It means everything. I'm honored by you guys, man. Thank you. Hopefully this will.
I'm gonna mute myself, guys, so the kids don't come in here or something.
I thought maybe you weren't gonna be as confident with your rhythmics so you're just gonna mute and play along.
I'm gonna be singing with the mute on.
I can see from the top of my heart a love that's paper thin, and there's nothing to lose when you put nothing in. And I can hear in the back of my mind the same old voices again, telling the same old story and stealing the hope of this man. And I've been afraid to live, running out of time. Love is patient and love is kind. From the top of my heart I've been trying. Lord help me find the bottom this time. This ground has been tilled by a love whose harvest was always enough. Now I'm learning to live on the things I know fill me up. I can see from the top of my heart to the bottom was a long way to go. And divine is the taste of the love that carried my soul. And I've been afraid to live, running out of time. Love is patient and love is kind. From the top of my heart I've been trying. Lord help me find the bottom this time. I've been afraid to live, running out of time. Love is patient and love is kind. From the top of my heart I've been trying. Lord help me find the bottom. Lord help me find the bottom. Lord help me find the bottom this time.
Nice, man. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you, man.
Amazing.
Great tune, man. Hey, thanks so much for spending time with us today, brother. I love you.
Man, thank you. Bless y'all.
Love you,
Thanks
Cory.
so much, Cory.
Love you too, man. Thank you.
Good luck with all those kiddos, brother.
I'll take
See you in a
it.
bit.
I'll take it. See ya.
Randy.
Thanks so much for tuning in to The Moment You Made It. Got a question, comment, or great idea for an upcoming guest? Let us know. Shoot us a note at hello@momentyoumadeit.com. That's hello@momentyoumadeit.com. Thanks for tuning in and see y'all next week.